nice gold, big gold letters, and these are the eyes of the Mona Lisa, which I thought was pretty cool. And then this writing actually does appear in the book, and you can know what it says, but it's actually backwards, right in this part, which is part of a code that, well, I'll get to that a bit later. It takes place in modern-day France, starting out in the Louvre, I think it's how it's pronounced. It's a big art museum in Paris that has the Mona Lisa. It's famous for housing a lot of like really famous art, really nice, like just old art, expensive art. It changes out throughout the story, going from Paris to like London and everywhere in between, like a bunch of different places. And the main characters are Robert Langdon, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but he is a Harvard scholar who goes to France to meet with a cryptographer, and if you don't know what that is, they are somebody who decodes like ancient codes, trying to find what they mean, why they were left there, who left it, like what they are supposed to tell us. And so they meet because he teaches, I think, cryptography and symbology at Harvard, and he's a huge fan of Leonardo da Vinci, hence the name, the Da Vinci Code. But he doesn't come into the story until after the murder of Jacques Senner, I think that's how I pronounce his name, who is the curator of the Louvre, and he looks after all the art and makes sure it's all nice and ready to be presented to any visitors. And he is killed by a hooded figure that you later find out, which not really later, but pretty soon after he's killed, to known as somebody named Silas, a Christian monk sent by the church. And what I learned from this book about this book is that it caused a lot of controversy, and when you read it, you can really see why. It was banned in schools, and a lot of people hated it. But it's a really good book. I read it because of that, because I wanted to see why. And it also, well, Silas and a bishop, the other two main characters from a different point of view of the story, from the point of view of the church, who's trying to stop Robert and his accomplice Sophie Review, who is another cryptographer that comes in to help him try to solve the murder of Jacques, who she tells Langdon a bunch of like who Jacques was, which is his grandfather, and I know it may sound like I'm spoiling the book, but you find this out pretty early in the story. So if you think it's a spoiler, I'm not going to spoil anything that's actually good. So Jacques is her grandfather, but the police do not know this, and so they are blaming Robert Langdon for the murder of him because he wanted to find him because he knew they could help each other and try to find out like who did it and why, and this big secret thing that he was hiding. This book has 3 points of views, one from Robert and Sophie, it's in third person, one from the church, Silas and the bishop, as well as a man known as the teacher, who you do not find out his real identity until the end of the book, and the French judicial police, who are chasing Robert and Sophie because they are so, Benzu Feche, the captain of the police, is so hooked on the idea that Robert killed Jacques, so they chase them through Paris until they reach, well, in the Louvre, they go to Leonardo da Vinci's painting section, where they find the Mona Lisa, because Jacques left messages, and they need to find out what it is. Sophie finds a key hidden, and this key goes to a box in a Swiss bank, and once they find out, like, it's a little box, they describe it as being about this big, just a little bit smaller than like a desk, with a rose on the top. When they open the box, again, this is not a spoiler, they open the box, they find something called a cryptex, which is like a little tube that was used to safely deliver messages in like old times because you never knew like if you could trust messengers, because they might sell the information from a king going to another and cause like war or reveal a secret that wasn't supposed to be revealed. So they find this, and this is where this book starts getting really, really good. Is when, and it's also where I found it to be kind of frustrating, because they go after this whole thing to find out how to open it. So they're trying all these codes. They think they tried Da Vinci. It's a 5-letter thing. I don't quite remember all of them, but I know Da Vinci was. But it ends up being something really, really obvious, because Jacques is Sophie's grandfather. So it's really up to her to find out what the code is. And once they do finally open it, there's another cryptex in it. Another plot twist. This book is full of twists and turns, and it's really good for anybody that wants to likes mystery, symbology, or just conflict. And so, but the main theme of this would be, the main theme is symbology and finding things that are really important, and such as we are teens, and as of now, we're probably trying to find ourselves, what we're here to do, what we want to do, and everything that we're supposed to do. And so a passage I found is on page 260.
And I'm going to ask them to do something. So I do want you all, as you listen to the passage, I want us to close our eyes. So put down your pens and get comfortable. All right, so let's all get comfortable. I want you to really try to visualize what he's reading, okay?
A chapter called Princess Sophie. Sophie felt hollow as she listened to the clicking of T-Bing's crutches fade down the hallway. Numb, she turned and faced Logden. In the deserted ballroom, he was already shaking his head as if reading her mind. "No, Sophie," he whispered, his eyes reassuring. "The same thought crossed my mind when I realized your grandfather was in the Priory. And you said he wanted to tell you a secret about your family. But it's impossible." Martin paused. "Seigneur is not a Merovingian name." Sophie wasn't sure whether to feel relieved or disappointed. Earlier, Ogden had asked an unusual passing question about Sophie's mother's maiden name, Chevul. The question now made sense. "And Chevul?" she asked, anxious. Again, he shook his head. "I'm sorry. I know that would have been an answer to some of the questions for you. But only 2 direct lines to the Mediterraneans remain to their family names are Plantard and St. Clair. Both families live in hiding, probably protected by the Priory." Sophie repeated the name silently in her mind, then shook her head. There is no one in her family with the name Plantard or St. Clair. A weary undertow was pulling at her now. She realized she was no closer to what her grandfather had wanted to reveal to her. Sophie wished her grandfather had never mentioned her family this afternoon. He had torn open old wounds that felt painful now as ever. "They are dead, Sophie. They are not coming back." She thought of her mother singing her to sleep at night, her father giving her rides on his shoulder, and of her grandmother and younger brother smiling at her with fervent green eyes. All that was stolen, and now she felt, now all she had left was her grandfather. And now he is gone too. I am alone. This is a passage that's kind of one of the emotional parts of the story, where Sophie's trying to figure out what everything means, and what her grandfather left for her, how it involves her and her family. Like a little context to this is her family was killed in a car accident, and all this new information, she's starting to try to figure out what happened, what really happened, who did it and who caused it, and all this, and she's trying to find herself, her family, what everything means. And also, other things that you could interpret would be Robert and Logden symbolized us trying to find ourselves, or the Holy Grail as what they're actually looking for. the church, people who are trying to manipulate what we believe and think, trying to tell us what we want to be, trying to influence how we think and what we do and what we try to enjoy. And then the French judicial police symbolize, well, who we think are the enemy in the beginning, but then turn out to be an unlikely ally in the end.